Professor Yakutani is a dedicated pharmacologist focused on his research. His assistant interrupts him as he is so focused on typing. She tells him a pharmaceutical representative is here for a meeting. He asks her to escort him to the meeting room. In a hurry to join the meeting, he accidentally drops some papers, and he sees a picture of his late sister. He quickly leaves. Later, he returns to type his paper, but he took a break as his timer went off. He almost falls when he stands, so he goes to eat to get his energy back. Then he remembers how his sister died a tragic death from an untreated tumor. The adults at the funeral said his sister's fate was bad, and that's why there was no drug to treat her. Yakutani didn't believe in fate, so he dedicated his whole life to research and creation of medicines. He goes to conduct his experiment, setting the timer for the next batch, and he returns to his office to take a nap. He sets an alarm and then lays down as he wonders the last time he interacted with a patient. He hopes that one day he can be a town pharmacist. Sadly, his assistant found him dead the next morning. When Yakutani wakes up, he sees a maid who calls him Master Falma. She tells him to be careful, as he has been struck by lightning. He notices his voice sounds different, and he's in a new body and surroundings. He quickly goes to the window and is shocked to see a vast garden outside. The maid, named Lotta, holds a mirror in front of him. He sees his reflection, and it's that of a young boy. Confused by the name Lotta calls him, she explains that he's Falma de Medicis. He jokes that the name sounds like a pharmaceutical company, wondering if he's dreaming or seeing memories from a past life. He's shocked as he realizes he must have died from overwork. When Lotta asks if he can remember anything, he denies it, so she happily reintroduces herself. He then asks if they can remove his bandages, and she rushes to make preparations. When they're done, Lotta is shocked to see a mark on his arm, which she says is the mark of Panakthios. She starts thanking God. Falma tries to explain it's just a Lichtenberg figure, a burn from lightning, but she keeps praying, saying it's a sign that Panakthios protected him. Falma asks if Panakthios isn't the god of chaos and fear, which shocks Lotta. She explains that Panakthios is the god of medicine, a revered god in their kingdom. Falma finally understands, and Lotta becomes sad, asking if he forgot about their god. Falma defends himself, saying he was just confused, and then asks her more about his life. Lotta takes Falma through the mansion. She explains that the de Medicis family is a great aristocratic house in the Saint-Flouvre Empire. They are known for being royal pharmacists. His father, Bruno, holds the rank of Archduke. He is also the president of the Imperial School of Pharmacy. She shows Falma a picture of his father, mother, younger sister, and older brother. His brother is currently studying at Novalaut College of Medicine, the most prestigious school in the world. Lotta says their father has high expectations for both of them, not just as pharmacists, but also as practitioners of divine arts. She excitedly explains that divine arts are miraculous feats known as the works of the gods. Falma realizes that magic exists in this world and that he can perform it. Lotta becomes scared when she realizes he has forgotten about divine arts, saying that the ability to use them is a mark of nobility. She tells him he has the divine arts of water and asks if he remembers how to cast it. Falma lies, saying he does, but his memory is fuzzy. He asks what will happen if he can't cast it. Lotta says he would no longer be recognized as a noble and would be driven out of the estate. Falma assures her he will remember and returns to his room to figure out how to cast his divine arts of water. He recalls Lotta saying he first has to create a mental image of the form of water. Falma interprets this as the molecular structure of water, so he envisions H2O in his mind. Suddenly, the mark on his arm starts glowing, and water appears in his palms, forming a large swirl. He quickly rushes to the window to throw it out, but it kept increasing. He begs it to stop. Finally, the mark on his arm stops glowing and the water stops flowing, making him relieved. Lotta calls to him from downstairs, happy that he remembered how to use his power. He asks if she got wet from the water, which she affirms, but says it was refreshing and helped her water the garden. She rushes in to change her clothes and meet him. Falma can't believe that water actually emerged from his hands and wonders if it works with other substances. He tests it out and is able to create other solid mineral compounds. He realizes he can produce simple substances and compounds, but mixtures aren't possible. His left hand can create substances, his right hand can destroy them, but it only works if he knows their structure. Lotta knocks on the door, so he quickly eliminates all the substances before she walks in. She rushes in, happily, and says he can rest easy now, but asks if he also completely forgot his medicinal knowledge. Falma is confused, so Lotta warns him to be careful because his father often springs surprise quizzes on medicine during meals. Just like Lotta said, during the meal his father asks him how to make the Georide salva that was used to treat his arms. Falma is scared but manages to answer, explaining the processes of making the Georide. His father approves and mentions that it's good his cognition wasn't affected, then orders him to resume his lessons with Eleanor the next day. The next morning, he meets with Eleanor, but she states that something is off with him. He asks what she means, and she mentions that his demeanor has changed, and he seems like a different person. She points out that his way of talking to her has changed too. She adds that he usually calls her Ellen. She then reintroduced herself as Bruno's top apprentice and his personal tutor. She moves closer. She says something is different about him. Falma feels tense, but relaxes as he explains that his memory has been fuzzy since he was struck by lightning. She says if it is so, then it's no big deal, and asks if he remembers divine arts, which he doesn't. She just smiles and tells him they will skip pharmacology and review the basics of divine arts. Ellen explains that aristocrats have the aptitude for divine arts, each with a guardian deity. For Falma's family, it's Panakthios, but for her, it's Hydrotheos. She adds that divine arts have 5 attributes: fire, water, air, earth, and none. Each has 2 types, positive and negative. Falma asks what attribute someone who could create any substance would have. Ellen says such powers don't exist. She says everyone's powers are fixed, but if someone did have such powers, they would be a god or a monster. This shocks Falma. Ellen takes Falma to a reaver for training. She gives him her wand and tells him to face the river and launch a spear of water. She instructs him to imagine the form of water and say the activation incantation. Spear of water. Falma holds the wand over the river and focuses. He starts glowing, which shocks Ellen. The area becomes windy, and a bright light shines as a large spear of water emerges from the wand, shooting towards the river. This shocks Falma and knocks Ellen to the ground. The water spear starts heading back, scaring Falma, who drops the wand, causing the water to disappear. Ellen stands up, checks Falma's body, and asks what happened to his divine power. She fears he might have expended all his divine power, explaining it's a fixed amount. She gives him a staff called a divinometer and tells him to hold it. Falma is skeptical, but she directs his hands to it. The blue and red liquid inside rises to the top, cracks, and turns white, scaring her. Falma asks what it means. Ellen steps back, saying it's a colorless capacity break, which should be impossible, and asks him what he is. Her glasses fall to the ground. She says no practitioner has ever exceeded the divinometer before. Falma is confused. She checks the glowing mark on his arm, saying it's Panakthios' holy mark. Falma insists it's just a burn from the lightning incident, but she corrects him, saying burns don't glow. She warns him never to hold a divinometer in front of anyone, not even his father. Falma agrees to keep it a secret. Ellen decides to end their lesson for the day. After leaving the palace, Ellen struggles to walk due to blurred vision without her glasses. Falma offers support, noticing her trembling hand. She attributes it to not seeing the ground clearly, prompting Falma to suggest a rest on a nearby bench. He instructs Ellen on a technique to enhance her vision by creating a pinhole with her fingers. Initially skeptical, Ellen tries it and is amazed when her vision clears up. As Falma mimics the trick, he unexpectedly sees an X-ray-like view of Ellen's body, noticing a blue light on her eyes and an injured finger. Curious, he touches her finger, causing her pain, and quickly apologizes. Ellen reveals she injured it that morning, puzzled how Falma knew without it being bandaged. Falma covers his eyes and identifies it as a sprain, seeing it turn from blue to white as he diagnoses it. He asks if this ability is a divine art. Ellen trembles as she explains it is known as Panakthios' divine eye, allowing him to sense illnesses and grant cures. She is more terrified that Falma has no shadow, so she abruptly leaves, begging Falma to spare her life. Falma tries to reassure her, but she flees into the bushes in fear, leaving him exhausted from the day's startling events. The next morning, Falma is in his father's office, shocked to hear that Ellen is no longer his tutor. He explains that she messaged about having a high fever and can't continue tutoring. He gives Falma a potion and a letter to deliver to Ellen. Back in his room, Falma analyzes the potion and realizes it's just a nutrient drink. He writes out the proper medication and the correct dosage intervals for Ellen's fever. Falma goes to Ellen's place. When she opens the door, she's wearing full armor and holding a wand, fearing he's come to end her for knowing his secret. Falma raises his hands in surrender, assuring her he's unarmed. She calms down and asks why he's there. He explains that his father sent him with a potion. Ellen is pleased but then becomes scared, thinking it might be poisoned. Falma reassures her it's not, and gives her his own medicine and a salve for her jammed finger, along with usage instructions. Ellen still fears it might be poisoned, but Falma scolds her. Falma asks Ellen to continue tutoring him, but she says she can't teach him more in divine arts or pharmacology. She thinks he's the god Panakthios reborn. Falma insists he's human and needs her help because his family's library doesn't cover divine arts. Ellen kneels, promising to keep his secret and continue tutoring him. Falma clarifies he needs her knowledge, not anything else, and gives her flowers, hoping she will return as his tutor. Ellen ponders the powdered drug Falma gave her, curious since she's never seen anything like it. She was skeptical at first, but she recalls Falma's smiling face. She concludes that Panakthios is a good deity. He has no record of harming humans. Seeing the flower he brought, her favorite, she decides to trust him and takes the drug. The next day, Ellen returns to the mansion, greeting Falma as Panactheos. Falma is happy to see her and glad she's feeling better. She tells him the drug was very effective. Noticing she's still wearing her armor, she explains that if she has to train a god, she needs to protect herself from any injury. Falma is thrilled she'll continue tutoring him and thanks her. Ellen says she's just playing her part, not wanting his divine arts to get out of control and accidentally level the entire capital. Falma thinks she's exaggerating, but she insists she's not. She announces their next training location is an uninhabited island, as a precaution. On the island, Ellen demonstrates an art to Falma, who exceeds her expectations but loses control, prompting a scolding. She then has him try ice, which he creates massively, throwing it into the sea to avoid crushing it. Ellen reassures him that with more practice, he will gain control. Falma decides to note what his powers are. He sees parts of their bodies glowing. The glow indicates illnesses, which he easily identifies. He realizes that a full recovery makes the light disappear, while a dim glow remains if recovery is not possible. He worries that in this world, his existence might be heresy. If his abilities and lack of shadow are discovered, he could be arrested and killed. Falma decides he needs to make himself indispensable to the people to save himself. When Lotta walks into the mansion, he sees she has eczema on her hands, which he can cure. He starts making medicine for her. First, he makes glycerol. This makes him happy. He realizes that as long as he knows a substance's chemicals, he can make solids, liquids, and even viscous things. He creates another substance and starts mixing them. He uses his pharmacology knowledge from his previous life. He's able to create a remedy for Lotta. Falma gives Lotta a gift of medicine to thank her for all her help. He explains that since her hands dry out from scrubbing, the cream will help if she applies it regularly, along with a steroid salve for any bad spots. Lotta is thrilled and thanks him, asking if she can share it with her mother and the other servants who have similar problems. Falma agrees. He will make medicine for each servant. He will examine their symptoms first. With Lotta's help, Falma gives each servant medicine for their illnesses. The servants are surprised but gladly accept. Lotta tells him everyone is overjoyed, and Falma is touched by their reaction. Lotta explains that the servants are moved because they have never received medicine from their masters before. Falma is surprised and asks why, as the servants are practically family. Lotta explains that his father, a pharmacist for high aristocrats, doesn't examine commoners. Falma believes it's wrong to select patients based on social class. Lotta adds that even if pharmacists examined them, they couldn't afford the medicine. Walking in the garden, Falma thinks about the problems of class hierarchy and drug prices. He realizes that without access to good medicine, commoners turn to superstitions. This leads to high death rates. He believes making more effective medicines available and affordable could solve this issue. Lotta interrupts Falma's thoughts, saying he has never examined her before. Falma says it because he was just an apprentice but promises to work hard to make medicine available to everyone, which she believes he can achieve. Falma returns to his study, complaining about being an abnormal being in this parallel world. He can create and remove things. He can see illness with his left hand and magnify things with his right hand. He lacks a shadow, probably because he has died. He worries that his powers are too great and might cost him his life if he keeps using them, but he is excited. He finishes a simple Leeuwenhoek microscope. He can now use it to see things at high resolution without relying on his right hand. His excitement is interrupted by a servant who informs him that his father wishes to see him. Falma meets his father, who tells him they need to leave immediately for an emergency house call for Her Majesty the Empress. They arrive at the palace where Claude, the head court physician, eagerly awaits. Bruno discusses the Empress's condition with Claude, who mentions her weakened lungs and leads them to her chamber. Falma follows as they kneel before Her Majesty Elizabeth II, whom he sees for the first time as the veil on her bed is removed. Bruno checks the Empress's pulse, retrieves his bag, and draws blood, placing it in a tube and applying divine art to it, which causes it to glow. Falma recognizes this must be how they diagnose illnesses. Bruno and Claude meet with the astrologists, who attribute her condition to bad stars and conclude that her fate is nearing its end. Falma is surprised they use astrology to conclude their decisions. Bruno plans palliative care to ease her suffering. He offers the Empress an inhalable medicine. Falma can't stand that they don't plan to cure her illness, and they just want to help her die painlessly. He uses his left eye to diagnose the Empress's illness and identifies her lung problem as tuberculosis, known as the White Death in this era. He concludes that he has to give her medicine orally, since there are no injection devices. He thinks of 4 medicines she needs, including rifampin, but worries about its complex structure. He sees Bruno reciting a prayer, already blessing her in advance for her passing. Suddenly, the young prince runs into the room, kneeling at his mother's bed and crying. asking when she will get better. A servant tries to take the boy away, but he refuses, crying more beside his mother. The Empress is too weak to console her son, making her sad, and everyone in the room feels the sadness too. Falma takes a bold step and approaches the Empress's bed. He asks for her permission to treat her, saying there's a new medicine for her illness. His father tells him to stop, but the Empress asks if the new medicine really exists. Falma affirms, and his father pulls him back, warning him not to joke about such matters. The Empress stops Bruno and asks Falma if he knows the name of her illness. When Falma confirms, she agrees to let him treat her. Claude tries to stop her, but she insists she can still discern who is trustworthy. Claude relents, and the Empress tells Falma she sees he hasn't given up hope, granting him permission to treat her. Falma returns to his study to prepare the medicine, barricading the door with ice and ignoring Bruno, who bangs on it, demanding he open up. Falma starts by writing out the formula for the 4 drugs he needs. He envisions the formula and begins creating the medicine, but Bruno blasts through the door with his powers, interrupting him. Bruno asks what he's doing, and Falma explains he's creating the medicine for the Empress. Bruno insists it's impossible since no one can cure the White Death. Falma is surprised his father already knew it was the White Death. Bruno confirms, saying they diagnosed it from the beginning. Falma realizes that his father is an exceptional pharmacist, as he identified the illnesses without any special help. Bruno scolds him, saying that being a pharmacist is not just about using knowledge, but also soothing the patient's heart. He explains that since the White Death is incurable, giving false hope is cruel. Falma defends that the medicine exists, and Bruno too must take it. He continues creating the medicine in front of Bruno, who asks what he's doing, but Falma doesn't answer, focused on his task. Falma is shocked when a water bullet spears the paper from his hand. He turns to see Bruno aiming his wand at him, casting icicles, and demanding to know what kind of medicine he's making. Bruno insists that if Falma can't say what drug it is, then it's poison, and he fires the icicles at him. Falma deflects them and immediately casts a wall of ice between them, shocking Bruno with his ability to do so without a wand or incantation. Bruno demands to know who he is, ready to attack. Falma can't say anything, but Bruno notices his journal on the table and goes to look through it. He asks what the writings are, and Falma answers that they are new medicines he dreamed of the day he was struck by lightning. Bruno then notices the glowing mark on Falma's arm and asks if Panakthios gave him this revelation. Falma defends that he couldn't reveal it to anyone. Bruno is confused, saying he can't believe Panakthios granted his son a blessing. Falma begs Bruno to give the medicine he will make to Her Majesty. He suggests saying that Bruno made it, so Bruno's reputation in the court will be protected. Bruno refuses, sheathing his wand. He says the medicine Falma makes is his to give, and that has always been his teaching. The Empress has placed her faith in Falma and staked her life on his new medicine. Thus, Falma must stake his own life on giving her the medicine, as that is a pharmacist's duty and pride. Falma agrees and undoes the ice wall, leaving Bruno in shock. According to Bruno, even though Falma can produce water, he shouldn't be able to make it disappear. Falma continues creating the medicine as Bruno watches, recalling a young Falma crying when an experiment blew up in his face. He asks Falma if he really is his son. Falma smiles at him, saying he considers himself his son. Falma returns to the Empress's chamber where everyone is waiting. He apologizes for the wait, and some aristocrats whisper that he's disrespecting the Empress by covering his face. Falma approaches the Empress with the medicine when Claude stops him, questioning why he took so long and implying Bruno might have fled. Falma reassures them this isn't the case. The Empress has a coughing fit and urges Falma to come closer. Claude remains doubtful. Falma presents the medicine to the Empress. His father, Bruno, enters and stands beside Claude. Claude asks why Bruno is not stopping his son, but Bruno says there's no need, as Falma's skills might have already surpassed theirs. This surprises Claude. Falma opens the tray and takes out his microscope. He asks the Empress for permission to show her something, which she grants. He places a sample slide from her into the microscope and hands it to her. She looks and is shocked. She asks what kind of creatures she's seeing and calls Claude to look. He also is shocked, asking if the creatures are bugs. Everyone else wants to see, curious about the organisms. Falma explains that these organisms are bacteria causing the White Death. He says the medicine will attack the bacteria, and if taken properly for half a year, she will fully recover. The Empress, impressed, accepts the treatment. Falma prepares the medicine and vows to ensure she takes it daily until healed. He drinks the medicine first to show it's safe. The Empress does the same. Falma then declares that once the bacteria are eliminated, the White Death will no longer be incurable. Cheers erupt in the room. Falma returns home with Bruno, and there is an awkwardness between them. Falma expresses relief that the Empress is finally able to sleep, and Bruno credits Falma's medicine. Falma hopes it works, and then takes out a bottle and a powdered medicine from his bag, offering it to Bruno if he's willing to accept it. Bruno acknowledges that Falma has been blessed by Panakthios. Although he can't understand Falma's godlike techniques, It motivates him to enhance his own knowledge of medicine. He accepts the medicine, saying he will obey if it's his guardian deity's will. Falma humbly states that although he has the knowledge, he learned to understand the pain of a patient on the verge of death from Bruno. Despite his great power, he admits that he is still an apprentice-level pharmacist with shallow and unrefined skills. Falma asks Bruno to continue teaching him about medicine and to pursue the path of medicine together, extending his hand. Bruno shakes it, acknowledging his son's request. Falma continues treating the Empress. One day, while attending to her, the Empress's son pulls him aside and tells him the Empress is considering rewarding him and asks what he wants. Falma shares his dream. He wants to open a pharmacy where cheap medicine will be available to all, both nobles and commoners. Several months later, Falma and Bruno receive a summons to an award ceremony at the palace. The Empress has recovered and returned to the throne. Bruno is honored with the territory of Marseille in recognition of his loyalty and his role in training future pharmacists. Falma is overjoyed upon hearing this news. Falma is stunned when the Empress calls him forward. Still in shock, he is promoted from apprentice to official royal pharmacist. Bruno encourages him to proudly accept his royal pharmacist badge, which Falma does with joy. Additionally, the Empress grants him special permission to open a pharmacy in the capital. The next day, Falma meets with the builder, who informs him they've been instructed to begin construction immediately. Ellen surprises Falma by joining the meeting, explaining that Bruno asked her to assist in establishing his pharmacy. Falma starts sketching out his ideal pharmacy layout, impressing everyone in the room. Construction progresses smoothly, with the builder praising Falma for his precise plans. He asks about the pharmacy's name, but Falma hadn't thought of one yet. He rejects Imperial City Pharmacy and considers Democides, but doesn't want to use his family name. Reflecting on his dream of owning his own pharmacy coming true, he muses aloud that he never expected it to be a parallel world pharmacy. The builders immediately requested a sign be made with that name, and it was placed on the storefront after completion. Falma and Ellen admire the storefront when a man approaches, complimenting the building and asking to meet the owner. Falma introduces himself as the proprietor, which surprises the man, Veron, head of the Saint-Fleuve Pharmacist Guild. Veron mocks Falma for his youth and suggests he has no idea about drugs and he'll sell candies due to his age. Ellen tries to intervene, but Falma calmly explains about lozenges and other medicinal forms. Veron is taken aback by Falma's knowledge and realizes that Falma must have studied diligently. Falma asks Veron if he needs to join his guild to operate, but Veron explains that they do not accept aristocrats. The guild is only for commoner pharmacists. He offers to accommodate Falma if he wishes to join, but Falma politely declines. Veron scoffs, suggesting that noble-run businesses tend to overcharge. Falma continues smiling and assures Veron that they will offer affordable prices. This angers Veron. He loudly questions Falma's understanding of what low prices for commoners versus nobles. Before Veron can escalate further, Ellen intervenes sharply. She calls his behavior shameful and warns him not to threaten the store. She says she will deal with him if he does. Veron apologizes and hastily leaves. Later, Falma checks the store's inventory and finds everything in order. They can handle customer interactions and sales. But Falma realizes he still needs to do accounting and find a trustworthy helper. Falma returns to the mansion, but is surprised to find his sister and Lotta in tears and the other servants sad. Cedric explains he is retiring, despite no one knowing why. Everyone praises Cedric for his excellent management of the estate's finances over the years. Cedric mentions his knees are the reason, even though he'd like to continue working. Falma offers Cedric a position at his pharmacy and promises to help with his knee. He rushes to his father's office to seek permission for Cedric to join, and Bruno agrees, having already released Cedric from service. Bruno gives orders to his servant Simon to bring in an item. Simon opens the door as two other servants carry in a large box. Simon hands Falma the key to the box, and Bruno explains it's a congratulatory gift for Falma to use in operating the pharmacy. Falma opens the box and is surprised to find it filled with gold coins. Bruno encourages him to accept it as extra capital for the new venture, and it's his fatherly gesture to him. Bruno also says that Cedric is loyal and trustworthy. This makes him suitable for managing the pharmacy's finances. Falma thanks his father. He is grateful, since he realizes Cedric's dismissal was part of Bruno's plan. It was to allow Cedric to work with him, which makes Falma happy. Falma is concerned when the pharmacy sees no customers a month after opening. Ellen suggests that commoners might feel intimidated by a noble's pharmacy. They might prefer pharmacies run by fellow commoners. Falma tasks Lotta with a survey to uncover the reasons behind the lack of visitors. Lotta returns with results revealing many fears. Some fear the seal, others worry about nobles. They fear facing consequences. One lacks clothes. Another worry is Falma's young age. Ellen identifies these as misunderstandings. Cedric suggests clarifying the pharmacy's effectiveness and fair pricing. This will reassure the people. Lauda reads another report. It highlights misconceptions about prices being negotiable but still expensive. Some people had readability issues with the store signs. Falma realizes his mistake. He labeled prices as negotiable to help people afford the drugs, but it only causes confusion. Cedric proposes setting fixed prices and improving sign visibility. Falma agrees. She is optimistic about finding ways to attract customers and build community trust. Later, an old man named Jean, a regular customer, enters the pharmacy. He buys 3 sailor's candies, his usual buy, and helps himself to some water. Ellen and Lotta are happy to see him, but wonder when they'll gain more regular customers like Jean. Jean compliments the water as refreshing, prompting Falma to inquire if he spends a lot of time at sea. Jean confirms this. Falma explains that the sailor's candy contains vitamin C. This is crucial for preventing scurvy in sailors. Falma learns that Jean is actually the commander of the St. Fleuve Scarlet Fleet, revered by all sailors. After buying his candies, Jean leaves and bids them farewell. Falma invites him to come again. Falma steps outside for fresh air and is surprised when his parents, wearing face masks, approach him. Bruno asks to see the pharmacy, and Falma gladly gives them a tour. He starts with the first floor, showcasing the main store area, a compounding lab, and a waiting room. The second floor is dedicated to medical care and patient rest, featuring beds, an isolation room, and a bathroom. Moving up to the third floor, there's a staff break area with a kitchen, while the fourth floor houses Falma's research lab for developing medicines. Bruno praises the establishment. He asks about customer traffic, noting visits from nobles and merchants but a lack of commoners. Falma explains they are working on welcoming commoners. His mother suggests selling cosmetics to attract aristocrats. She says that being popular with nobles will also help commoners to buy them. Falma recalls his past involvement in joint research with a cosmetics company, testing products for safety. Intrigued, he asks his mother for ideas. She recommends long-lasting skin products with pleasant fragrances. Bruno intervenes, cautioning against producing harmful white face powder, noting it shortens lives. His mother pours as she reveals she avoids such products due to Bruno's disapproval. Falma is impressed by Bruno's insight into this issue based on observation alone. Their conversation is interrupted by a man seeking urgent help for his collapsed lady. Falma meets Lady Chloe, fully recovered, but in tears. She explains she tried lightening her skin to please a suitor who prefers pale complexions. Lotta asks Falma if he can help. Falma decides to create a safe foundation for Lady Chloe. Giving her a pale appearance without harming her skin, he tells her to return a week later. A week later, Lady Chloe returns, tries the product as Falma instructs, and is amazed at its effect. Falma provides her with a makeup remover that she can use to remove the makeup after, and explains that it also helps to rejuvenate her skin. Lady Chloe thanks Falma gratefully for helping her achieve her desired skin. Lotta takes on the role of advertising these cosmetics to the people. She tells the women that nobles like these products. She emphasizes the product's safety and effectiveness in making skin beautiful. And she says they are affordable. The women are impressed and begin flocking into the store to purchase them. An elderly lady approaches Lotta, interested in the cosmetics, but confesses she can't read. Lotta reassures her, providing a manual with illustrated drawings on how to use the products. The store quickly fills with women eager to buy the cosmetics for themselves. Word spreads about the pharmacy selling these sought-after products at reasonable prices. A man shares his positive experience with friends. He mentions the great health consultation he got there. Jean congratulates Falma on his flourishing business, but Falma faces a new challenge. Lady Chloe is dismayed that the cosmetics have already sold out, as she brought friends to see them. Falma apologizes, explaining they can't keep up with the sudden demand. He talks to her privately, saying his staff can't handle the influx of customers coming in. Lady Chloe proposes creating a subsidiary company for cosmetics. She will finance it and hire pharmacists to run it. Falma will stay on as the proprietor. Speechless, Falma seeks Cedric's advice. Cedric assures him that Lady Chloe's family is trustworthy and offers to handle the necessary paperwork. Falma accepts her generous offer. Shortly after, the subsidiary company named Medique was established. Falma marvels at how quickly Lady Chloe made it happen. He asks about the staff. Lady Chloe introduces him to skilled pharmacists. They have excellent medical knowledge, just as he had requested. Lady Chloe explains that she recruited female pharmacists. Their contracts had ended due to childbirth. She highlighted the challenges female pharmacists face in getting contracts after such breaks. Falma is impressed by Lady Chloe's initiative in employing female pharmacists instead. He ensures they have maternity leave and family leave policies in place, which greatly pleases the new staff. Falma reflects on the success of his pharmacy, grateful for how popular it's become. Ellen even jokes that they may not close anytime soon. Falma feels both happy and anxious. He notices 2 people in white robes. He walks up to them and asks if he can help, but they ignore him and look at him with distaste before leaving. This leaves him confused. In the staff room, Falma shares his concerns about the strangers. Ellen confirmed they weren't looking for a pharmacist. Lotta mentioned that she tried talking to them, but they didn't respond. Falma suggests they had another motive, as they didn't seem interested in buying anything. Ellen states that she doesn't even recognize their robe being worn in the Empire by anyone. Early the next morning, a guard opens the pharmacy gate, but suddenly a carriage loaded with dirt charges in. The guard rushes to report the incident to Falma and Bruno. Bruno is furious, and the guard apologizes, explaining it happened too fast to stop. Falma is shocked that someone would make such a daring move. Bruno vows that whoever is responsible will pay for going against his household. Simon wonders why someone would attack the pharmacy. Bruno explains that many resent Falma, a newcomer selling unfamiliar medicines, and this incident won't be the last. He instructs the guard to report the matter to the Empress and plans to visit the palace himself. Falma excuses himself to go check on the pharmacy. People are already cleaning up the destruction as Falma rushes in. He asks Cedric if anyone is injured. Luckily, no one was hurt, but the store is in terrible condition. The carriage loaded with sediment crashed directly into the store, leaving everything covered in dirt. Cedric is furious at this, but he casts a purification spell to remove any contaminants in the death. Apologizing, he can't remove the muck itself. Falma thanks him for his help, though he's still upset by the incident. He's relieved the compounding room was spared. Cedric says he quickly evacuated Ellen and Lotta to the second store with some medicines. Falma appreciates Cedric's quick thinking. Cedric also suggests redirecting prescriptions there to handle scheduled customers efficiently. Their conversation is interrupted by Jean, who arrives with some young men to help clean up. They're fans of Sailor Candies and offer to assist with any heavy labor. Falma sincerely thanks Jean for his support, and the men begin working under Jean's direction. Townsfolk helping with the cleaning reassure Falma not to be disheartened. They express their willingness to assist, seeing Falma as one of their own, and grateful for what he has done for the community. Falma and Cedric express gratitude to the people for their help. Suddenly, a distressed woman rushes in, urgently asking to see Falma. He quickly approaches her, asking what the problem is. She tearfully explains that her father collapsed in the heat and hasn't regained consciousness. Falma hesitates to leave the store in its current state, but the townspeople and Cedric encourage him to go, promising to handle the cleanup. Falma thanks everyone and heads out with the woman. Falma rides a horse guided by the woman, wondering what caused her father to faint: dehydration, heat stroke, or other illnesses. He brought along first aid supplies just in case. She points to a hill where her father is supposed to be, and Falma heads there. As they walk up the hill, Falma starts feeling uneasy because they are in a remote area far from the city. When he turns to ask the woman where her father is, she's suddenly gone. Before long, he finds himself surrounded by men on horses, all wearing white robes. The leader points a wand at Falma and asks if he's the boy who erased the sea in Marseille and who has no shadow. He identifies themselves as inquisitors from the Holy Kingdom. The leader explains that they received reports about a boy with no shadow who miraculously erased seawater without a wand. Initially skeptical, they investigated and found unusual divine power in the area. Now they've been ordered to find and eliminate him. Falma recalls learning about inquisitors during his studies with Ellen. She taught him about the temple. It is the largest religious group in the world. They decide newborn children's guardian deities. This enables them to use divine arts and grants them aristocratic status. Falma remembers Lotta mentioning he might become a commoner if he couldn't use divine arts. Ellen continues explaining that the temple also picks each nation's ruler. It gives them a wand and crown, making their authority higher than the states. She mentions that the temple also houses the Office of Inquisition. It is a special branch tasked with eliminating evil spirits and heretics. They misuse divine arts for unjust ends. She reassures Falma that normal people rarely have dealings with the Office of Inquisition. However, Falma finds himself confronted by Grand Temple Inquisitor Salomon, who accuses him of being an evil spirit disguised as a boy. Falma insists he's human, but Salomon doesn't believe him and orders him to step back and raise his hands. Falma complies cautiously, but inadvertently steps into a trap activated by Salomon. It's a barrier designed to trap evil spirits. To everyone's surprise, the barrier starts fading and disappears completely. Falma tries to explain that he's not an evil spirit, so the barrier can't work, but before he can, the Inquisitors attack. One casts a fire spell, but Falma creates nitrogen to shield himself from the flames and removes the oxygen around him, negating the fire. Another assumes his power is to negate fire and hurl ice bullets, but Falma disperses them effortlessly. The Inquisitors are shocked by his multiple abilities and start to fear him more. Salomon orders his men to obliterate him. They unleash earth, fire, wind, and water attacks from all directions. Falma protects himself with an ice cage, but he becomes angry as he wants to avoid violence. As he starts to dissolve the ice cage, divine power accumulates around him, surprising everyone. Salomon orders his men to prepare a defensive barrier, But it's too late. A bright light emanates from Falma, blinding everyone momentarily. Salamon's horse is startled, throwing him off. They are terrified to see Falma glowing with a huge ice boulder over his head. Falma declares he didn't come to fight and would rather use his powers to heal than harm anyone. He urges the Inquisitors to withdraw their attack. Salamon notices the Panactheos' holy mark on Falma's arm, realizing his mistake. He understands that Falma has no shadow because he is light itself. Thus, he's Panactheos incarnate. Salamon says they have offended a guardian deity. He believes the injury he sustained falling off his horse is divine punishment. He offers to atone with his life, attempting to stab himself, but Falma stops him and eliminates the knife and the ice. He then uses his eyes to examine Salamon's leg injury, noting a fractured upper shin bone. He suggests amputation, but the injury glows red, indicating potential infection if the limb is amputated. Falma chooses a less drastic solution, causing the glow to change back to white, signifying a better outcome. Falma decides to treat Salamon immediately. He creates a large rock slab for him to lie on, and orders they arrange for a carriage to transport him later. Salamon is surprised by Falma's mercy, but Falma asks him to forget the incident, focusing only on his injury. Falma enters the tent and explains the treatment plan. They will give antibiotics to prevent infection and use spinal anesthesia. They will clean the wound well, stitch it up, and prepare to move Salamon for more care. Salamon agrees, and Falma administers the anesthesia, preparing him for the procedure. He tests Salamon's sensitivity with ice. This confirms the anesthesia's power. It leaves Salamon in awe. Falma then draws on his experience with animal surgeries to successfully save a human life. After ensuring Salamon's recovery, Falma instructs his men to escort Salamon to the temple and promises to follow up later. The men ask how they can repay him, to which Falma humbly suggests they keep his power a secret. Months later, the new bishop, Salamon, visits Falma's pharmacy unexpectedly. He brings gifts and thanks Falma for her crucial role in his recovery. Falma is curious about how Salamon changed from an inquisitor to a bishop. He learns of Salamon's hard journey to attain his position. Salamon assures Falma that he has cleared any accusations with the Grand Temple. He promises to protect Falma from any more baseless claims. He gives Falma a serious glance before smiling warmly. Falma casually notes that Salamon's retinue seems excessive for a courtesy visit, as the pharmacy is packed with Salamon's men. Salamon requests to speak with Falma privately. Salamon presents a box to Falma. Inside it is a wand of impressive stature. Falma is awestruck, asking about its origin. Salamon explains it's called the Panic Rabdos. It's a treasure from the Guardian Deity Temple. It can do combat, diagnostics, and healing using divine arts. It's collapsible for portability. Falma hesitates, concerned about using something so valuable. Salamon reassures him, saying the wand will recognize and appreciate Falma. Falma curiously asks what would happen if it broke or was stolen. Salamon suggests he pick it up first. As Falma holds the wand, it begins to glow brightly. Ellen is mesmerized by it. Falma gives her to, but it goes through her hand. Salamon explains that only guardian deities from another world can hold it. Human hands cannot. Ellen marvels, suggesting Falma might truly be a god, but Falma dismisses the idea. Falma wants to test its abilities and asks if it can float. Salamon mentions legends claim it can with sufficient divine power. To their amazement, when Falma sits on it, the wand indeed floats. Ellen is ecstatic, noting no one has flown using a divine wand before. Salamon praises Falma as worthy of such a weapon, and Falma expresses gratitude to Salamon. Before leaving, Salamon assures Falma that the temple won't harm him, but whoever attacked the pharmacy might still be coming for him. Falma admits they haven't identified the culprit. Salamon gives Falma a talisman. It suppresses divine power. It lets Falma regain his shadow, helping him hide. Falma happily thanks Salamon for the gift. Falma's life settles into a routine again. He strolls with Lada and his younger sister, content that the temple isn't after he and his business thrive. Yet, a persistent issue remains staffing. Recruiting rich pharmacists is hard. Commoner pharmacists are busy with the guild. Suddenly, he overhears a lady at another pharmacy. She wonders why they don't stock medicines from the parallel world pharmacy. She expresses frustration at not getting the products she wants, because the parallel world pharmacy is always crowded. The staff member dismisses the parallel world pharmacy as heretical, claiming their new medicines and low prices don't make sense. The lady defends the pharmacy, citing its good reputation across the capital. At that moment, Pierre, the owner of the pharmacy, steps in. He acknowledges the good reviews of the parallel world pharmacy, but he suggests their success might be due to Falma's aristocratic connections. He implies they might be buying reviews. Pierre explains that despite their good reputation, the guild refuses to approve medicines from Falma's pharmacy. He warns that without guild approval, they can't legally sell those drugs in the capital, and if he tries it, the pharmacist guild would put him out of business. The lady remains unconvinced by Pierre's explanation, remarking on the guild's stubbornness. Falma walks away after hearing all this, realizing the guild's influence over the city's pharmacies, and decides to find a solution. Falma returns to his store. He shares his plan with Lada, create their own guild, the Compounders Guild. It will help commoners sell their innovative medicines. Lada wonders if any other stores would join. Falma plans to start with their 2 stores, confident more will follow once the guild is established. Ellen supports the idea, noting it could ease store congestion. Falma adds that it will also lighten his workload, so he won't die from overwork, to which Ellen teases him about sounding like a middle-aged man. Meanwhile, Pierre worries about his daughter's health. He is troubled that regular treatments aren't helping her. At the Pharmacist Guild meeting, Veron is visibly angry as he voices his frustration over Falma's pharmacy continuing to thrive. Other pharmacists join in. They complain that parallel world pharmacies' prices are so low that even the poorest can afford their medicine. They also mention how quickly Falma's pharmacy recovered after the carriage crashed into it. Veron accuses Falma of using divine arts or his family's wealth to succeed. The Empress herself is backing him, adding to Veron's irritation. Whispers among the pharmacists suggest a rumor that Veron himself drove the carriage into the pharmacy out of spite. Veron slams his hand in frustration, declaring Falma's pharmacy as the root of their problems. He insists they must eliminate it by any means necessary and expose what he believes to be an aristocratic scheme. Veron then prohibits all guild members from having any contact with Parallel World Pharmacy. Anyone who violates this rule will face expulsion from the guild and revocation of their business license. The guild members accept this proclamation with applause, but Pierre, among them, remains indifferent to the decision. Pierre finds himself in a difficult situation as his daughter's condition worsens. He rushes to a clinic and bangs on its doors, hoping to see a doctor. However, Falma, who is passing by, tells him the clinic remains closed until the following week. Falma asks if her illness suddenly worsened. Pierre notices Falma's royal badge and the curious stares from onlookers, so he doesn't respond. Falma offers to examine his daughter right away. Pierre is reluctant, but hears his daughter whimper in pain and agrees. Lada, who is with Falma, rushes ahead to prepare everything at the pharmacy. Pierre follows Falma to the pharmacy. Falma leads Pierre to the back entrance of the pharmacy, avoiding the front with its long queues. Pierre feels a sense of pride that they are using the back because he's someone of high standing. He is astounded as he views the examination room for the first time. Falma instructs Pierre to lay his daughter on the examination bed. He then puts on a nose mask and hands one to Pierre, explaining that these masks help prevent the spread of infection. That's when Pierre realized they used the back entrance to prevent spreading diseases to other customers. This surprised him. It wasn't about his social status after all. Falma begins by asking Pierre a series of questions about his daughter, her name, age, recent meals, and the symptoms she is exhibiting. Pierre is taken aback by the level of detail and care that Falma demonstrates for a single patient. When Falma asks about her weight, Pierre carries his daughter to the scale and steps on it. Falma explains that measuring her weight helps determine the appropriate dosage for her medicine. This amazes Pierre. It differs from the common practice among common pharmacists. They just have the adult dosage for children. Falma then uses his eyes to assess her condition. Pierre is shocked and asks if it's a form of divine art. Falma confirms this. He then explains that his daughter's symptoms indicate a severe cold known as influenza. He retrieves a medicine from a drawer, explaining its effectiveness when delivered via oral inhalation. This method ensures the medicine reaches the lungs directly. It targets the pathogens multiplying there. Pierre remains skeptical, but Falma simplifies it. She assures him the medicine will help his daughter win the battle against the illness. He explains that the fever Marie is experiencing is her body's attempt to fight off the pathogen, which is vulnerable to heat. Falma also prescribes a medicine to reduce her fever and advises Pierre to offer her water once she wakes up. Pierre thanks Falma, as he is left stunned by the detailed and compassionate care he provides. Pierre returns home that night with his daughter, grateful for Falma's swift and effective treatment. Falma provides Pierre with a bag containing 5 days' worth of medicine. They part ways outside the closed pharmacy. Falma reassures Pierre. If Marie's condition worsens at night, he should return and inform the guard. Falma will be there to help. Pierre asks Falma how much he owes. Falma surprises Pierre by revealing it's only the price of a piece of bread. Pierre is astonished by the low cost, and Falma explains that he deliberately keeps prices low to ensure he can help as many children as possible. Falma leaves after saying goodnight. Pierre finally understands why Falma's pharmacy surpasses the guild. Later, as Pierre tests some medicines, his wife interrupts with good news that Marie is sleeping better, thanks to the medicine. Pierre admits it's from Falma's pharmacy, which shocks his wife because the guild prohibits dealings with them. Pierre praises Falma's pharmacy as incredible. He notes Falma's deep knowledge and genuine concern for patients. These qualities, he believes, define a true pharmacist. Pierre feels inadequate compared to Falma. He lacks divine arts and in-depth medicinal knowledge. He expresses his wishes to incorporate a fraction of Fatima's expertise into his own shop, but knows the guild won't approve. His wife advises caution, reminding him of their current debts and Marie's ongoing care. Pierre understands his wife's concern, but he tearfully explains that following the guild's rules for commoners may mean he can't save his wife or daughter if they get sick again. His wife understands his pain, holding his hands in solidarity. At the Pharmacist Guild meeting, Veron is furious over plummeting sales due to the success of the parallel world pharmacy. One pharmacist reports a 20% drop in sales, while rumors swirl about the pharmacy opening a third store, along with its cosmetics shop. Veron reveals smashing his wife's cosmetics she bought from there in anger. Other members are talking about losing female customers to the pharmacy because of the cosmetics. They also mention that the pharmacy now has the backing of the temple's bishop. Veron silences them by slamming his goblet. He turns to Pierre, who has suffered the most losses. This is because his store is closer to the pharmacy, asking for his opinion. Pierre stands up boldly and asks if any guild member has visited the parallel world pharmacy or reviewed their medicines. He shares his experience of taking his daughter there for treatment. He praised Falma's effective and affordable care for all patients, regardless of their status. Veron accuses Pierre of being charmed by the pharmacy. Turns out Veron's hatred stems from the fact he lost his child because no noble pharmacist helped him in his time of need. He demands to know why Pierre supports a noble's pharmacy over theirs. Pierre challenges them to compare their practices. Theirs involve herbal remedies with dubious claims. He wants to compare them to Falma's pharmacy, which emphasizes logical and patient-centered care. Veron angrily expels Pierre from the guild, refusing to consider Pierre's argument. Pierre returns to his shop to see it completely destroyed, leaving him devastated. Falma happens to be passing by and sees the wreckage. He asks Pierre what happened, just realizing that Pierre is a pharmacist. Pierre explains that after he told the guild the truth about his time at Falma's shop, they took away his merchandise and business license. Falma apologizes for putting him in such a terrible position, but Pierre says Falma shouldn't apologize. He explains that Falma's medicine and shop had a deep impression on him, and in the hope that the guild would see it too, he had tried to enlighten them about it. But instead, he was expelled, and now he can't do business in the country anymore. He's thinking of moving to another country and starting afresh, as he can't give up walking the path of a pharmacist. This saddens Falma and Lotta. Falma asks if Pierre can do business again if he joins another guild. Pierre affirms. Falma then reveals that he just got the Empress's approval to start a new guild. It's called the Compounding Pharmacy Guild. It focuses on making new medicines. He asks Pierre if he would be willing to join them, saying it would be an honor to have him. A light of hope shines in Pierre's eyes as he looks at Falma, and he cries, realizing there is still hope for him. A new store is built for Pierre, and he ensures everything is in place for the grand reopening. As he goes to open the door, he doubts whether anyone will even show up or if people will accept him since he's not parallel world pharmacy. But his daughter pulls at his trousers, smiling and telling him he can do it. Pierre takes his daughter's confidence in him and stands tall as he opens the door to the store for the grand reopening. He's surprised to see a lot of people already waiting outside. Word of a new pharmacy affiliated with Parallel World Pharmacy, selling the same medicines, had spread around. Pierre cries as a new day has begun for him, and he can continue being a legitimate pharmacist. He welcomes everyone to his store, on pharmacy. Falma is hanging out with Bruno when a servant brings Bruno a letter. Bruno reads it and then tells Falma to meet him in the office later. When Falma arrives, Bruno explains that next month, the capital will host the Saint-Fleuve Fair, a large event lasting a month. Merchants from all over the world will gather in the Imperial City, so they must be cautious. Falma asks why, and Bruno reveals that a strange epidemic broke out on Panté Island, a colony of their neighboring country, Netherlands. According to the letter, 1,000 citizens on the island died from a fatal disease. Falma asks if it was an endemic disease or poison. Bruno says it wasn't specified, but a top academic research team took samples for study. 2 of the researchers died. This shows that the disease is contagious. The deaths ended the epidemic on the island, but Netherlands merchant ships loaded with goods from the island were coming to the fair. Falma understands that some of the merchant cargo could be contaminated. Bruno explains that the only port Netherlands merchant ships can use is Marseille, which is governed by their family. Falma asks if the remains of the infected researchers or their samples are still available. Bruno says everything was incinerated by divine art fire, leaving only ash. Falma knows this was the safest measure, but is angry, which means the higher authorities judged the situation to be unmanageable. Bruno explains that the letter detailed how the first researcher, he suddenly got a high fever with severe symptoms. Then, he fell into a coma and died by the 7th day. The second researcher died faster, with his fingers turned black. Their laboratory was sealed off, and all travel to the island was prohibited. Thelma asks if there is more information besides the necrosis and blackened extremities. Bruno says his microscope was shown to the Novalout College. There might be sketches from the investigation of the samples. Thelma asks his father to send copies of those sketches. Thelma receives the sketches and is shocked that such a disease exists in this era. He meets with Ellen and Bruno, identifying the pathogen as the Black Death. Bruno agrees, saying he thought so too. Although he had only read about it in literature, he recognized it as the dreaded Black Death, which last appeared 210 years ago. Thelma knows the Black Death, or plague, is transmitted through fleas carried by rodents. There have been multiple outbreaks on Earth, and in the 14th century, it spread so rapidly that it is said to have halved the population of Europe. Bruno explains that what makes the plague terrifying is its persistence. He says cargo from Panté Island will be heading to the capital by land and sea. Thelma says that's why he has sent instructions to Adam to set up quarantine stations in Marseille's port. Ellen adds that Thelma also taught the inspection method to some of her students, who were sent ahead to get the process started. Bruno applauds them for their quick thinking, but he worries. If an outbreak occurs in the capital, it could doom the Empire. There's no method to fight the disease. Thelma says there is a way to save the Empire. He has prepared a new medicine to combat the disease. It's levofloxacin, an antibiotic effective against the bacteria that causes the Black Death. He already sent the necessary amounts to partner drugstores for packaging. His father is impressed by him. Thelma thanks him, but emphasizes that the first line of defense is to prevent the infection from happening at all. His father understands and tells them to follow him to the palace. They meet with the Empress and request to close all the gates and limit the merchants' entry points to the city. The Empress agrees. Thelma also asks if he can set up cargo inspection points at the gates, and she consents. When she asks if he needs anything else, Thelma explains that the Black Death spreads to humans through fleas, particularly on rats. To eliminate routes of infection, he suggests ordering residents to exterminate rats and fleas and boil their clothes. The Empress immediately issues these directives. Thelma returns to the pharmacy to meet Pierre and asks how the production of the new medicine is going. Pierre says they have already made 1,000 doses with the materials provided and sent them out to quarantine stations and other stores. Thelma entrusts the capital to Pierre's care, and Pierre assures Thelma that together they will stop the Black Death. Thelma and Ellen, wearing their protective gear, go to the harbor to talk to the quarantine staff. The staff explains that they've already got all ships from foreign nations anchored at sea. They also present reports on the merchants' health. They add that all merchant cargo had been purified with divine wind arts before unloading. Any cases of infection, even if not related to the Black Death, have been quarantined and isolated. Thelma thanks them for their hard work. Then, he and Ellen proceed to sail to the ships to administer the antibiotics to the crew members. After they're done, they gather to discuss their next step when Adam rushes in with an urgent report. He says that multiple people in the village of Lestat have died after developing high fevers. A ship feared that the right procedures in Marseille would take too long. So, it's gone to the small fishing village and chose to enter illegally there. Ellen asks where these awful merchants are now, and Adam says they've already left the village. Thelma asks about the state of the village, and Adam explains that the villagers initially thought it was a normal fever. However, after the first death, the disease spread rapidly, indicating that the Black Death had arrived. Thelma quickly leaves to inspect the situation. He flies to the village on his wand, suspecting that the infection came from rats hidden among the cargo. He knows he must act quickly to find the ship, purify the cargo, and treat the crew members. When he reaches the village, some residents are already fleeing, scared they'll be cursed by the evil spirit killing people. Thelma appears in front of them and tells them to return to the village, but they protest, asking how they can stay where people are dying so often. Thelma insists he will explain everything, but they have to return. They refuse, saying that their lives are on the line and accusing him of being the evil spirit that has cursed their village. They raise their weapons to fight. Thelma tells them that if they flee, they still won't survive until the evil is eliminated. When they still refuse, Thelma has no choice but to use his wand to enclose the whole village in ice. He explains that he took these steps to contain the illness. Then, he removes his mask and goggles. He introduces himself as a royal pharmacist who has come to save their lives from the Black Death. He says he's brought medicine to eliminate the invisible creatures that cause the Black Death. One villager asks if this means they won't die. Thelma replies that he can't guarantee that some people won't die, but with their help, he can keep the death rate to a minimum. He tells them they have a right to be scared, but they should stay and receive treatment, or else he won't be able to save them. The people have finally returned. Thelma meets with the village heads and explains the situation. He says he will divide the village into 3 sections, one for severe symptoms, another for the infected, and the last for the uninfected. The village heads agree to carry out the segregation. Falma assures them that this will help prioritize who to treat first and prevent the infection from spreading. After the segregation, Falma heads to the hospital where the terminally ill are located. Falma goes into the room where the terminally ill are being attended to by other technicians who are fully covered. Using his eyes to determine the severity of the illnesses, he sees all the patients glowing. 12 patients have the plague, 2 don't, and 1 has already perished. He prescribes levofloxacin for the 12. Their symptoms improve. Their glow disappears, showing that the medicine is working. He tells them the medicine will be enough. He turns to one patient, saying he just has a fever from a cold and not the Black Death. Once this patient takes the prescribed medication and changes into new clothes, he can go home. However, he must follow the pharmacist's instructions for the infected area and remain in isolation for a period of time. The man is happy he is free to go. Falma uses his wand on the patients to accelerate the effect of the medicine through divine art. However, he faces the issue of low staff to continue care and the need for appropriate drug choices, so he keeps working. He and the other practitioners end up working into the night. Finally, they leave the hospital and go to the infected section, where the village head is waiting for them, thanking them for their help. Falma reports that they administered the medicine, but it was too late for some. Still, half of the severely ill patients are in stable condition. The village head is relieved, as he expected none of the severely ill patients would survive. Falma finally takes his leave, worried that he took longer than expected and hoping the rogue crew has been found. He spots smoke from an area and flies to check on it. Falma goes to investigate the smoke and finds it coming from a burning cargo. Some men have been captured. He asks the practitioner if they are from the illegal ship, and she confirms, saying these men were left behind because they were too sick to keep up. One of the men begs to be freed, claiming they were only following orders. Falma asks how many were in the cargo and crew, but they hesitate to answer since he's just a kid. Falma tells them they have the Black Death and offers them medicine if they share what he needs to know. A man reveals the specifics. They brought 4 carts. They carried hand-woven goods, spices, and animals. White squirrels from Panty Island. Falma concludes that the squirrels, being rodents, could be plague carriers. The men don't believe him, saying their shipmates died because they couldn't handle the journey. Falma asks how many are headed to the capital. The men say there were 24 shipmates and 5 holy knights. Holy knights are combat specialists. They practice divine arts and serve directly under a royal family or major aristocrat. They wonder why holy knights were accompanying them. But the men have no idea, saying the knights boarded during their voyage. Falma realizes that the holy knights intentionally meant to bring the plague carriers to the island to start an epidemic. He wonders if the Empress's infection was also part of a scheme to cause an epidemic. The men are escorted away for treatment while Falma tries to make it back to the city. At the capital, Lotte is giving masks to foreigners. She explains that masks protect against illnesses. They are mandatory for all visitors. Suddenly, there's an explosion somewhere in the city. The people are being attacked as enemies try to breach the gate. The guards order the gate to be lowered, but one of the holy knights uses his wind divine art to smash it. Pierre rushes into the attack, despite the danger, to ensure the station where the drugs are stored isn't destroyed. He rushes to the situation, finding it safe, but the workers are scared and asking what's happening. He says he has no idea. The attack continues, but he tells them to protect Falma's medicine. He looks at the gate and sees holy knights walking through with a man pushing a cargo behind him. The man collapses to his death. The holy knights proceed, releasing the white squirrels from the cargo and using a whirlwind to disperse them around the capital. The wind collapses the medicine tent, but no one is injured. Pierre emerges, asking what happened. The workers report that the holy knight had dispersed the squirrels across the capital. Pierre tells them to act fast, as the Empire is in danger if the squirrels go far since they are carriers of infections. He runs to the guards, telling them to sound the alarm and close all gates, houses, and shops to prevent the squirrels from entering. The bells toll throughout the city, signaling an invasion. A servant rushes to report to the Empress. She at first worries about the holy knights from Netherlands, but she relaxes when she hears they number only 5. She is confident that her forces can easily defeat such a small group. Bruno, however, suggests they view this as an intentional infection mission. He proposes that the Empress take the new medicine for the Black Death as a prophylactic. She agrees, but wonders about Netherlands' motives, as they have always been allies with the Empire. Moreover, their recent monarch's death adds to the confusion about who would orchestrate such an attack. Bruno speculates that someone familiar with the workings of the Black Death is behind this scheme. He mentions a pharmacist who was expelled from Nivelout College 3 years ago. The pharmacist was brilliant but morally bankrupt. They've conducted gruesome human experiments. This pharmacist was seized by the Inquisitors, had his divine art sealed away, and was cast out as a commoner. Before his expulsion, He used prisoners of war to research poisons. He aimed to create a poison that could spread like an epidemic. The minister adds that this pharmacist might also be responsible for the death of Netherlands' monarch. The Empress asks who this man is. Bruno reveals him to be Camus de Sade, a former schoolmate and friend turned nemesis, the one man he's seeking to bring to justice for his crimes. The Holy Knights continue to distribute the squirrels around the capital, using their divine arts to overpower the guards. One guard fires at them, but their whirlwind disperses the shots. The Holy Knights move to scatter around the city, but Archbishop Salomon appears, trapping them with Earth's divine arts. He admonishes them for misusing their powers, and, with an incantation, strips them of their divine abilities. Meanwhile, Lotta is terrified by the alarm bells. Cedric confirms that they're under attack, and an explosion nearby only heightens her fear. Lotta worries about those who are injured and in need of medicine. She is especially worried because the nearby pharmacy stores dangerous chemicals. Cedric reassures her that it would grieve Falma if she were hurt, dissuading her from investigating. However, her relief comes when she sees Falma flying towards the attacked area. Falma lands on the bell tower and surveys the breached quarantine section below. He observes infections spreading and notices the flying squirrels. As he heads towards the gate, he sees his father and goes to meet him, asking about Marseille. Falma reports that everything is fine under Ellen's care. As they approach the gate, they find the guards questioning the Holy Knights about their invasion of the Black Death. The Knights claim ignorance of the disease. They say they were following orders from someone who was holding their people hostage. This person was a man possessed by an evil spirit, able to cause mass destruction. Bruno describes Camus' appearance to the Knights, who admit he's right, not long after they die. Bruno orders their burial and updates Falma that Camus, a psychotic pharmacist, is responsible. As the alarm finally ceases, Lotta celebrates and rushes to the pharmacy against Cedric's advice. Falma tells Bruno that he intends to return to the pharmacy to continue producing medicine, but senses something ominous. Using his eyes, he spots a dark shadow looming over the pharmacy and rushes there immediately. Bruno sees what Falma sees and orders the soldiers to continue ringing the bell because Camus is already in the capital. He goes after him, determined to stop Camus, even at the cost of his own life. Camus watches as Lotta and Cedric rush to the pharmacy. Lotta sees the open window and thinks that Falma has returned, with Cedric catching up to her. The alarm bells start ringing again, and Cedric wonders if there's another threat. He opens the door to let Lotta in, but senses something amiss. He calls for her to wait as he investigates further. Lotta runs to the research lab to find Falma, but he's not there. She starts to lock the windows when suddenly the door opens, startling her. It's Cedric, but as she breathes a sigh of relief, Cedric collapses to the ground, stabbed by Camus, who approaches her. Meanwhile, Falma rushes to the pharmacy and uses his eyes to spot someone who has collapsed inside, and Camus is already inside. Bruno catches up to him, and together they reach the research lab where Camus is waiting. They see Lotta and Cedric on the floor. Bruno instructs Falma to tend to them while he distracts Camus. Bruno fires ice bullets at Camus, but they are easily dispersed. Camus warns Bruno not to interfere, believing that all people will eventually die. Bruno counters that, as a pharmacist, his purpose is to help people live. Falma examines Cedric and Lotta's wounds with his eyes and detects poison. He tries to diagnose it, but the symptoms keep changing, indicating multiple poisons. He persists until he identifies it as batratoxin and neutralizes it, removing the danger. Meanwhile, Bruno continues to battle Camus, who effortlessly blocks all his attacks and knocks Bruno down with his dark aura. Camus mocks Bruno, saying he'll never understand the beauty in the suffering and inevitability of death. He kicks Bruno aside and moves towards the medicines. Camus grabs a bottle of medicine, praising the laboratory's array of unknown poisons. He takes out a vial of white phosphorus, intending to unleash another threat, but Falma quickly neutralizes it. Falma is furious. He says Camus is a lost cause. Lotta sees Falma's angry state but realizes he's not angry but sad, which makes her cry for him. Camus pulls out his knife, asking Falma what he's planning to do. Falma's hands glow as he punches Camus, which enrages him. Camus asks how Falma has so many powers, but can't see his ideals. He believes they're both seekers of truth and should view the world the same way. Camus, thinking Falma is distracted, throws 2 bottles of liquid at him, but Falma easily eliminates them. Camus questions why Falma fights for ordinary people who will eventually turn against him, just as they did to him. He warns Falma that he will end up like him, seen as an evil spirit existing outside human laws. This scares Falma, but he empowers his hands with more light, declaring that even if people turn their backs on him, he will keep curing them. He punches Camus with such force that it sends him flying out of the pharmacy window. Falma follows and delivers another punch, slamming Camus to the ground. Using his wand, Falma pierces Camus, liberating him and releasing a bright rainbow light into the sky, visible around the capital. Salomon witnesses the event and says that this power is called Cleansing Sanctuary, an ability of Falma's wand. Legend speaks of the wand and the Panactheos power being able to destroy any evil spirit in the air and quell an epidemic. Falma watches as Camus's body disappears into black smoke, saddened that Camus couldn't see the light. Lotta and Cedric come out to meet him. Bruno is relieved that Camus is gone. Lotta goes to meet Falma crying and hugging him, because he's okay. 2 months later, the Empress announces that the Black Death epidemic has completely ended. Lotta is happy as the Parallel World Pharmacy resumes operation, telling everyone to cheer. Ellen is glad they're opening again and hopes people haven't forgotten about them. Falma is confident they haven't and promises there will be no more special closings of the pharmacy. Jean walks in, and Falma thanks him for his help at the port. Pierre and Salomon also come in. Jean gives Lotta a gift from the fair, which she gratefully accepts. Ellen tells Falma that it's thanks to him the fair could be held. Falma modestly says it's because everyone worked together. The doors to the pharmacy open, and a long line of people is already queuing outside. Lotta goes to welcome them in with a smile.